Today's episode comes directly from a listener question, and it's one I get all the time. Do I really need postpartum supplements? Are they as essential as they're being marketed? Or should we just focus on food first? The short answer is yes to food first, and yes to strategic supplementation when it's done wisely. So it's a both and kind of situation. While, of course, yes, implementing food first strategies. Now, this conversation is not about pushing products or chasing the latest wellness trends. It's about understanding what your body actually needs to support hormone balance, recovery, and long-term health. That being said, of course, today's conversation is from a general perspective as an holistic orthopedic and pelvic floor physical therapist and mother of 4. This is not specific one-on-one medical advice. So please defer to your individual medical provider for any specific supplementation strategies to you. However, I very much hope that you walk away from today's episode with empowered strategies to be able to advocate for yourself and ask the right questions to your provider if you have them, because so often specific supplementation is overlooked, as is food first strategies, right? Women are not given any guidance in terms of postpartum nutrition and nourishment. And so that is what we are going to dive into today. Now, what's really happening with your hormones postpartum? After birth, hormones don't just gently recalibrate. They shift dramatically. In fact, this is the greatest hormone swing for anyone on earth, is the postpartum timeframe. Estrogen and progesterone drop rapidly. Prolactin rises to support milk production. Cortisol is influenced by sleep deprivation, the stress of a new little family member, right? And the need to nourish your body. All of this is happening while your body is healing tissues, rebuilding blood supply, and adjusting to a completely new rhythm of life. Postpartum hormone balance isn't about fixing your hormones. It's about supporting the systems that regulate them. Food is our foundation here. So I do want to be very clear that food always comes first. Food should lay the foundation for our nourishment and for our healing in this time frame. As always, real nourishing food provides information to the body. It signals that it is safe, that it has stability, that it has abundance, that it is a safe time to focus on healing, and it's not a season where we're in fight or flight mode. We want to signal to the body that we have enough. Postpartum hormone health is built on having adequate caloric intake, quality protein, 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight is what I typically tell my patients. And the ideal body weight is important here because, of course, immediately postpartum, you're not going to be at your ideal body weight yet. So for me, for instance, my ideal body weight, my normal body weight that my body thrives at is 120 pounds. That's where I get my cycle consistently. I've been below that weight and really struggled to have a consistent cycle. And then I have been above that weight and just wasn't in my optimal health. And then, of course, during pregnancy, I was above that weight. So I was at 160 pounds. By the end of my pregnancy, I was almost 41 weeks pregnant with a 9-pound, 10-ounce baby. And I had gained 40 pounds throughout that pregnancy. And so at the end of my pregnancy at 160 pounds, I was still aiming for 120 grams of protein. So 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. That is true throughout pregnancy, and that is true postpartum as well. So this point postpartum, I'm about 130 pounds and I'm still aiming for 120 grams of protein. And at this point, I sometimes will dip into that 130 range for protein goals, and that's okay too. That can fluctuate because 130 can still be a healthy weight range for somebody of my size, if that makes sense. Healthy fats is also very important for postpartum hormone health. What would constitute healthy fats? Well, we want to think of things like olive oil. We want organic, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, avocados. We want good quality meat, which is going to give us our protein, but also have some fats in it, right? From a grass-fed, grass-finished animal, okay? We can also get this from whole fat milk, as long as you don't have a dairy intolerance. So we use raw milk in our household, which is whole. We use full fat yogurt. So those are ways we can get healthy fats in through our diet. And then minerals and micronutrients. And the minerals and micronutrients, that is where we'll see a lot of the supplementation come in, just to make sure we're hitting those marks. But you're also going to be getting that from your variety of foods. That's your fruits, your vegetables. They're helping bring in those antioxidants, vitamin A, C, D, folate, all of that we can get through our diet as well. Here's the reality, though, that many women don't hear when it comes to food, and when they think that they can just do completely food first because that is what their influencer that they follow says. The fact is that our soil nutrient density is significantly lower than it was for our ancestors. Even with the best intentions, it's incredibly difficult to meet all postpartum nutrient demands through food alone in today's modern world. Supplements aren't a replacement for food, they're a safety net. And so this is why I believe in strategic supplementation and not only food, okay? Now, are supplements essential or are they overmarketed? And this is really where discernment matters. Supplements are often marketed as essential or urgent or life-changing, and that messaging can create unnecessary pressure. The truth is, it's easy to overdo supplements, and more is not always better when it comes to postpartum recovery. In fact, I have to giggle when I see an influencer sharing their superfood smoothie and they have everything under the sun in it. It's like your body can't absorb all of that at once. So we need to space strategically throughout our day any kind of supplementation that we are doing. So you do not need the latest trendy blend or dozens of capsules or highly stimulating formulas. We really want to stick to the basics, eat real food first, and then fill in the gaps strategically. It really can be that simple. So I like to take a holistic ancestral approach to postpartum supplementation. When I think about postpartum supplementation, I always come back to this question. How is the female body designed to be supported during this season? By our creator, right? Traditionally, postpartum care is centered around food-based, herbal, and mineral-rich support, not synthetic overload. So we really need to look at what the bioavailability is of any kind of supplement you're putting into your body. If it is man-made in any way, for instance, folic acid instead of folate or methylfolate, the way God intended it to be put into our bodies, then our body can actually react negatively to it. It can increase inflammation in our body, and it can even lead to reactions in the baby. In fact, there's been linkages to tongue ties and lip ties in infants with folic acid. So I always look at any kind of supplement a mama is on who's in our practice and just make sure that it has the most original form of the vitamin in the most bioavailable form. So folic acid is a prime example. If it has folic acid and, for instance, your prenatal, that would be a no-go in my book. We want to make sure it's utilizing folate or methylfolate. All right, so let's talk about this at the high level, not getting into specific brands, but just high level, what are our goals here? We want to look at blood building support, right? We've had blood loss with delivering our baby. Now we want to help rebuild our blood supply. So that's more than just supporting our iron levels, but that is included there. We want to replenish our minerals, especially if we're breastfeeding. We have so much output that we want to make sure we're supporting our mineral stores so that we're not pulling from our own bone density, for instance. We want gentle adrenal and nervous system support. So the thyroid in particular can be under a lot of stress in this postpartum season, as is our nervous system, right? And so we want to make sure that we're supporting our adrenals and that we're supporting and regulating our nervous system. And then finally, gut and digestive support. This is going to help with us absorbing what we're putting in, but we also need to think about the way that our gut and digestive organs were impacted by having to move around with growing baby and how they're now settling back into place. And so our nutrients are going to support the healing and the settling back into place for that part of our body as well. Now, there's so much wisdom in returning to how God designed our bodies to be nourished through whole foods, simple herbs, and consistent care, particularly in this postpartum timeframe. Now, what am I focusing on in this postpartum season as a postpartum mama of my fourth baby, who is also a holistic doctor of physical therapy? Well, first, I focused on blood building with chlorophyll. So, chlorophyll has been found to not only help the body detox in a safe way, not in an overly aggressive way where we would be concerned about detoxing too much and passing anything on to baby through breast milk, but in helping support our blood supply and through some liver detox as well. So chlorophyll, specific one that I'm using is Nature's Sunshine. In the first 0 to 2 weeks postpartum, up to that first month postpartum, can be very beneficial. I put 2 tablespoons and like 8 ounces of water. It actually has like a minty taste and is really good. Next, I utilized herbal After Ease tincture by Wish Garden Herbs. Now, this is amazing for after birth contractions. Now, with each child, those post-birth contractions intensify. So I'm not talking about the delivery of the placenta. I'm talking about when you're breastfeeding your baby and you feel that uterus just contract and it feels like a ton of back pain. I was absolutely miserable with this. My birth experience was calm, peaceful, wonderful. And then those birth after pains were just miserable. I would not say I had pain giving birth. I would say I had pain afterwards while breastfeeding because of those afterbirth cramps. And it's just like this very intense cramping. And it's your uterus coming back to its original size over time, but they're most intense the first 5 or so days post-birth. So After Ease tincture, you put, I believe it was like 4 squirts underneath my tongue and then swallow water because it does not taste good, but that can help ease those contractions. What helps as well is a hot pack there on your low back. So that's by Wish Garden Herbs. And that is just for really the first 5 days post-birth. And then you'll feel those after birth contractions ease and you don't really need that one anymore. Next, I utilize daily the Fullwell Prenatal. I'll drop a 20% off link in the show notes. But the Fullwell Prenatal is 8 pills a day. And I know that can feel like a lot. But the reason is that we cannot cut down the micronutrient choline into smaller amounts than what can be spread across 8 pills. That is why a woman's 1 a day, or if you're getting a prenatal and a 1 a day pill, run, because it is not giving you the optimal amount of micronutrients across the day, right? We need at least 8 pills to make that happen. And that's what you'll find in the Fullwell Prenatal. So I use 8 pills throughout the day. I do 4 in the morning, 4 in the evening. Everything is bioavailable. There is no synthetic ingredients in that specific prenatal. And I have very much done my research on this, and that is the one that I personally use and recommend. Next, from really that food first approach would be beef liver. So I am not cooking with this right now. We do not have much freezer space. In my third postpartum, I cooked with beef liver a lot. We just had more kitchen space, and it was just an easier season for me to be able to prep it in the foods that we were making. That season of life, we had purchased a quarter of a cow, and so we had just our freezer stocked with organ meats as well as grass-fed meats. So it was really convenient. Right now, we're in a tiny rental, and the reality is I just don't have a lot of kitchen space nor storage space to have fresh raw liver on hand to cook with. And so what I'm doing instead is supplementing, all right? So I am taking Perfect Supplements beef liver, which is grass-fed, grass-finished beef liver, which is ground down, dehydrated, and put into capsule form. And I will take those capsules like 3 to 4 times a week, really just to mimic having it in my diet. It's not something you need to have every single day unless you find that you feel best. You have more energy on those days that you take it and you find yourself craving having it daily. That's where this is individualized. You can certainly have it daily. And then collagen powder I also get from Perfect Supplements. I'll put this in my coffee each day. So helpful for repairing those connective tissues in our muscles and throughout our body. You can use code Dr. Kayla with Perfect Supplements on any order, and they'll give you a 10% off discount. Next, to help me meet my protein goals. So I had mentioned before, 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. I'm aiming for 128 grams of protein a day. To get that in diet alone for me is challenging. So I supplement with protein powder on most days. So right now, my routine is a scoop of Taylor Duke's Wellness candy cane protein powder frothed with milk in my coffee. I just love a peppermint latte and just have been craving it end of pregnancy throughout postpartum. So I'm still on that bandwagon. And then I also have Be Well by Kelly protein powder. Hers I love in smoothies. So both are pantry staples. We just have them in storage and I can grab, throw a scoop in. I'm getting an extra about 25 grams of protein in that smoothie or in that coffee. And that really adds up throughout the day if you use that to help fill in the gaps. Another way to utilize either of these brands is I'll put a scoop in with plain Greek yogurt. Again, we're using whole fat Greek yogurt. I'll mix that in, top it with a little bit of granola and some fresh fruit, and that's a great snack or breakfast. So with either of those brands, Be Well by Kelly or Taylor Dukes Wellness, you can use code Dr. Kayla, again, for a discount. All right, so putting this all together, what foods do we want to focus on to meet these nutrient needs from the blood building, the tissue repair, to thyroid supporting, right? So meat, of course, that's going to tackle our protein side of things, but it can also affect collagen and our micronutrients. Now we want to emphasize skin on and bone in cuts of meat that are slow cooked because these are going to be higher in collagen. They are also nice and warm, right? So warm, nourishing foods, you'll find a theme of that with like soups and stews in this postpartum season because those are easier for your body to break down and digest. And so when we think about that gut health side of things, that is going to be very helpful there. Really, for the first month to 2 months, if you're able, focusing more on those warm, nourishing foods versus raw, just to help the body direct energy stores elsewhere versus to the breaking down of the food. Now, bone broth is another favorite. It is so collagen rich. Again, you can put this in soups, but you could also just sip on it plain. And then, of course, collagen powder, like I mentioned, you can utilize as a supplement form for this. Now, Perfect Supplements that I had talked about, they actually have a bone broth powder as well. So not like a bone broth protein powder, but simply dehydrated bone broth. And I will scoop that into water if we don't have bone broth on hand. Again, we're low on storage right now, so I can't prep a ton and freeze it because we just don't have the space. So I keep the super condensed powder form of bone broth powder, and I'll use that when I'm making soups right now. Eggs and organ meats, especially liver, we mentioned earlier the importance of liver in terms of micronutrient density and how you can supplement with that. You can also eat it specifically. And then eggs are going to be really high in choline, which is super beneficial for our brain and nervous system, both for mama and baby. We also want to include plenty of fruits and vegetables. Getting that variety of micronutrients from those is so helpful. Cooking them now, if you're able, versus eating raw can be helpful in terms of digestion. We can get great omega-3s and fatty acids from things like seafood, salmon, and then seaweed is a great source of iodine. So seaweed soup is something that a friend brought me, and that was really great. There are seaweed snack packs you can get, for instance, from Thrive Market to have on hand to snack. That's wonderful. And then nuts. So Brazil nuts in particular have selenium in them, and that can be very good for your thyroid health. So we can see this mix of food, but also utilizing supplements to fill in the gap across the board. Now, how do we know if our food and if our supplements are supporting you or if you need more, right? So supplements and our food first approach should feel supportive and not stimulating or overwhelming. Signs that they're helping is you'll find steadier energy, improved digestion, better resilience to sleep disruption. So for instance, the first 0 to 2 weeks, the sleep disruption was like very challenging for me. And then now I just am able to write it out. And I think it's because your body adapts, but also I have better eating habits in place. I figured out the supplement routine that works for me, etc. And then we don't want to see intense crashes. So you should have steady energy levels throughout the day. If we see intense blood sugar crashes, that's telling us, A, we're not eating enough. We're probably not eating enough protein. We may not be eating often enough. So eating about every 3 to 4 hours. If you're going longer than that, you may be experiencing huge blood sugar crashes. And you just may not be getting enough support. Signs that you need to reassess your food intake and your supplement routine would be jitteriness, shakiness, you're having upset digestion, you're having increased anxiety, or you're feeling dependent on your supplements to get through the day. Now, that would be a sign that your food first approach is not where it needs to be if we feel that we're only reliant on our supplements. So they really should work with your body, they should work with your food, and they shouldn't override it. They shouldn't be the first line approach. Now, balancing our hormones isn't about finding this perfect tincture, this special remedy that's just going to heal everything perfectly. There is a lot of that clickbaity postpartum healing tincture, postpartum healing herbs, and it'll be all in one little tincture capsule, like a dropper thing. I've seen that from multiple brands. And all those at times can be helpful. There's no perfect one that is just going to solve all your issues. Really, it needs to be food first, supplement second, and simplicity always, right? So if you find yourself overcomplicating it and getting all of these ads for different postpartum tincture blends, knowing that they can have their place, sure, but oftentimes just sticking to the basics, like we talked about here, is what is going to make the biggest difference for you. If you want to see the postpartum supplements I personally trust and recommend, you can DM me SUPS, SUPPS on Instagram, and I will DM you them listed out because I know some of us learn best verbally, others learn best just by reading, right? So I will DM them your way. And again, that is what has worked for me. They are holistic, food-based options rooted in an ancestral approach to supporting the postpartum body. And what I have found to be tried and true after having 4 kiddos myself, but of course there is nuance in this. And, when I'm working with patients one-on-one, I'm looking at everything generally and making sure they're getting sources that are bioavailable and are the best quality. But for specifics, like if we are really worried about adrenal function, things like that, then we would want to get lab work, do a deeper dive, and work directly with your medical provider to make sure that we're doing anything specific to that category. But from an overarching postpartum healing standpoint, without any complications, this is going to really check a lot of boxes for you. And I hope you walk away today feeling a huge sigh of relief that you don't need to get the latest marketed tincture to you for thyroid health, for postpartum hormones, like all of the things. A lot of times it's sticking with the simple basics and things that we do outside of the postpartum season as well that are going to make the biggest difference for you. And I also want to just note on that is consistency, right? If you do something for one day and you're like, oh, that didn't make a difference. Well, it's because you did it for one day. Oftentimes our hormones respond to changes over the course of 3 months. And so we really do have to be consistent for a long time to see the change that we want to see. And that's why I'm such an advocate for how we support our bodies before we even get pregnant, throughout pregnancy, and then postpartum, because every 3 months is going to build off of each other. So if you supported your body really well in the last 3 months of pregnancy, you're going to reap the benefits of that in those first 3 months postpartum. Same is true for if you really support the body well the first 3 months postpartum, you're going to notice that paying dividends the next 3 months of your life. So keep it simple. Again, this is a question that I got directly from a listener. So if you have specific questions that you would like me to cover on the show, reach out. You can send me an Instagram DM. You can drop a show review, and in that review say, I would love to learn more about XYZ, and this is what has spoken to me most on the podcast so far, and I would love to do an episode specific to your question. So I hope that this resonated for you today. Share with a mama who has these questions too. Do I really need postpartum supplements? What about food first versus supplements second? How does that all work together after birth? I hope this answered that question for you, and share it with a friend who would benefit from listening as well. Until next time, take care and be well.